Hi, and welcome to the Ask Dr. Angela show with everyone's favorite OBGYN, Dr. Angela Jones. Have you ever been just too embarrassed or shy to ask your own doctor a question about your, private stuff? Well, you have come to the right place to get straight answers. Feel free to ask Dr. Angela anything women's health related. OBGYN, she keeps it real. Pregnancy, she knows what you're expecting. Whole body health, just ask. Dr. Angela has you covered, girl. And now here is Dr. Angela.
What's good, people? This is Dr. Angela, everyone's self-proclaimed favorite OBGYN, and I would like to officially welcome you to episode 32 of the Ask Dr. Angela podcast. So I was just thinking the other day, if you had like some personal theme music, music when you got out of bed, or walking down the street, working, what would it be? I'm just curious. Mine would probably be something jazz related. Something with a crazy horn all over the place because it kind of is pretty indicative of how I am. Just kind of all over the place mentally. My mind is always running like a million miles a minute. I went to a really fantastic Halloween party not too long ago. I meet the most random people, and I don't mean random in a bad way. I mean random in a really good way. I sometimes know just a little bit how like famous singers, actors, actresses feel when fans come up to them and they're like, oh my gosh, oh my gosh, oh my gosh, oh my gosh. Can you please just sing a little bit of blah, blah, blah? Or, oh my gosh, I can't believe it's you. Can you please just recite a little bit from that movie that you were in, those lines that went blah, blah, blah? Because this is kind of how it is with me. Whenever people find out what I do for a living, they're like, what do you do? And I'm like, oh, I'm an OBGYN. And they're like, oh my gosh, I know that you're not at work, but can I just ask you something? And so I'm telling you this story because this really happened to me at a Halloween party, no less. Granted, I was not dressed in character because I actually happened to be on call. So, I'm surrounded by a bunch of, what kind of costumes did we see? Bats, devils, angels, a lot of superheroes. Who's Woody from the Toy Story? Just a whole bunch of stuff. Little Mermaid, of course, Elsa and Anna. But anyway, this woman, came up to me and we were having a great conversation. And she's like, oh my gosh, can I just ask you something? I know that you're not at work, but can I just ask you something? And so I said, well, sure, shoot. And so she says to me, Dr. Angela, my vagina is so dry. I mean, my husband's being really patient with me, but, like sex really hurts. And so I looked at her, and she was pretty much like two sheets to the wind. Again, I was on call, so I couldn't partake the beverages other than, some water or a soda. And so I just looked at her, and I was just cracking up because I'm like, who curbside consults you at a Halloween party about dry vagina or painful intercourse? But I guess, hey, if you don't ask, you won't know. So I wasn't really mad at her. So, of course, after I let out a huge laugh, and again, not laughing at her, but just kind of laughing at the brassness and the audacity, which I love, totally love. I love when people just kind of say what's on their mind or not afraid of inquiring. That's what it's all about. If you don't know, you should ask. And if you don't ask, you won't know. And hey, I wasn't mad at her. So I looked at her, and after we both shared a really good laugh, I said, girl, first of all, don't even be embarrassed about asking me that because I see someone with this question at least 3 to 4 times a day. And if I tell you that I'm seeing patients 5 to 6 times a week and I'm seeing this 3 to 4 times a day, you do the math. So first of all, you are not the only one that has this problem. And it's just that nobody really knows what to do. I mean, granted, when women are in menopause, and certainly the woman that I was dealing with was in menopause, and she looked fabulous. She was a good, maybe, 60, still getting her groove on, which most of the seniors are these days, but that's a completely different topic. But, I said, okay, well, let's talk about this. So what are you doing for your dry vagina? And she's like, we use some KY jelly, but that's still not really doing the trick. So with Beyonce blaring in the background, people laughing and giggling and stumbling over themselves, We just had like a quick curbside talk about what happens to the vagina in menopause. And, certainly one of the biggest things that happens is that the architecture of the vagina changes once you are in menopause. And that's due entirely to the estrogen effect or lack thereof. So once you enter menopause and the ovaries are not producing nearly as much estrogen as they used to, the vagina becomes less hospitable, shall we say. The walls, which previously were filled with lots of folds, which we technically call rugae, R-U-G-A-E, those disappear. Those folds are important because they help the vagina to accommodate. I'm going to say that again. They help the vagina to accommodate or stretch. Vaginas that lack estrogen are also just drier. They're not as naturally moist as they used to be. The tissue becomes much thinner and much more easily traumatized. So you've got a vagina that is no longer wet. You've got a vagina that is no longer easily accommodating because it's lost all of its folds. And you've got a vagina that has very thin tissue and walls that are easily traumatized. Does that sound like a very inviting environment? No. So what can you do about it? There are tons of options, and I was so happy that this fabulous woman asked, because you can do a couple of things. Number one, there's vaginal estrogen. And I always tell people, because as soon as I say estrogen, everyone thinks, oh my gosh, I don't want to go on hormone replacement therapy. Well, it's not hormone replacement therapy. Vaginal estrogen, the effect is primarily localized, i.e. primarily just affecting the vagina. Now, I can't say that none of it is absorbed systemically, but the amount is so minute that it's kind of like pissing in the wind, so to speak. So vaginal estrogen is one option, and that comes in the form of a pill, which is my personal favorite because I feel that patients don't comment on it being as messy. But you can get vaginal estrogen again in a pill form, a ring form, a cream form. Okay, so we've talked about vaginal estrogen. The next thing that you could try are vaginal moisturizers. And I mean, my patients honestly are like 50-50 on these. The two biggest ones on the market are going to be Replens, and then the newest one that I've been recommending, which has like a probiotic, is Luvena, Luvena. And again, folks are like 50-50. Some of my patients really love it. And then some of my patients are like, really? I don't think so. This doesn't work so well. I did a blog post actually on vaginal atrophy. It was called Olive Oil, Good for More Than Just Cooking. It was one of my more popular posts. You should check that out actually on my podcast. Just go to www.askdrangela.com and then click on the Say What post, and it pulls up all of my blog posts. But you should definitely check that one up. Check that one out because it was so well received. And it talks about using olive oil or even coconut oil to kind of lubricate and rejuvenate the lining of the vagina. Your vagina is not going to taste like pasta or salad, but the coconut oil actually, most folks say smells really good, and it might even be like a turn on. So you may give that a try. And that's specifically for my patients that are much more natural, so to speak, and just don't want to try anything that's hormonal. The other thing that I typically recommend is making sure that you're using like a heavy lubricant. I'm not a huge fan of the KY products. My patient base typically does very well with Astroglide. Just food for thought. So these are just, a few of my thoughts on how to deal with vaginal atrophy. And I'm really happy that this young lady asked me about this because most patients and most women think, oh my gosh, I'm the only one that sees or that experiences this. And I'm just like thinking to myself, are you flipping kidding me? I've seen like 1 million of this week or this month. So you are so not alone. And that certainly is one of the gifts of being able to do this podcast, is that it lets you know that you are not the only one experiencing certain symptoms or going through certain things. All women at some point or another, if they haven't, they will be experiencing these things. So to my friend that became a follower of the Ask Dr. Angela blog post and now podcast, I hope that this answers your question. And to those of you that would like to have a question featured on the Ask Dr. Angela podcast, please, please, please submit it. Go to www.askdrangela.com. That's AskDrangela.com. Click on the microphone on the right-hand side of the page and do what you do. If we feature your question on the podcast, we will send you one of our bomb-ass t-shirts. And the t-shirts are really fantastic. We've transitioned from the tanks to an actual V-neck. We got to keep it seasonal, right? In closing, I'd like to leave you with this. I was scrolling through my Twitter feed. My business partner and dear friend, Mike, the self-employed king, posted something on my Twitter feed that said, broken crayon, still color. And then he said, Mike Koala, the self-employed king, keep going always. Setbacks are okay. You can keep going forward. You've got this. And I love this post because broken crayons are some of my favorites. They're broken, but they're the ones that get the job done because you can get all into the corners, you can color them on the sides. They're just freer and they have less boundaries to how you can use them. So until next time, people, look better, feel better, be better. I cannot wait to reconnect with you on episode 33.
Thank you for listening to the Ask Dr. Angela podcast. For more information on women's health and the show notes for this episode, please visit Dr. Angela at www.askdrangela.com. While you're there, don't forget to leave your own message for Dr. Angela. See you soon! All of the information provided and discussed in this podcast is for educational and informational purposes only and should not take the place of consulting a physician. This podcast is not intended to diagnose, treat, or cure any diseases or illnesses and does not and should not replace treatment for a medical professional. Listening to and participating in this podcast does not create a doctor-patient relationship between you and Dr. Angela Jones. If you need medical advice or assistance, you should consult a physician. Listening to and participating in this podcast is subject to the terms and conditions posted at drangela.com/terms.